So, Kate, you were at Microsoft before taking over as CEO of Lumen. And when you came into the company, it was, and to some extent still is, it was viewed as a kind of traditional telecom company. It brought fiber to people's houses, to businesses. You're re-architecting the company and arguably the architecture. Why do you see the future not as a traditional telecom company and really more as an AI infrastructure company?
Very important question. Telecom hasn't really innovated in a long time. Products are commoditized. Telecom in general ceded innovation to the tech companies, to digital upstarts, to other industries, and really hunkered down on continuing to build out infrastructure, but didn't really think about value-added advanced services digitally on top of that. And right now, the networks of yesterday, they don't serve enterprises who want to use AI to transform their business. Those networks are not big enough, they're not fast enough, they're not secure enough, they're not intelligent enough. But Lumen's got this incredible fiber network that's within a couple of milliseconds of 97% of the businesses in North America. And we saw a huge opportunity to seize the day, especially since AI is the fastest diffusing technology in the history of mankind.
Was there an aha moment for you internally where you're like, okay, we need to make a big switch?
I think to say there was an aha or that there was some sort of clairvoyance is just not really a thing. I think we've all been watching this story unfold. It's not, quarterly or annually. It's daily.
Yeah.
Right? And so knowing that we had to transform the company, that we were actually starting from not a great place a couple of years ago. Now we're in a fabulous place, in large part because of some of the work that we've done. We kept learning and talking to our customers and to our ecosystem partners. And we saw very clearly that the hyperscalers, the biggest technology companies on earth and the social platforms, they were going to make big bets on training their AI algorithms, and AI needs data, data needs data centers, and those data centers need to be connected. And we were the best network, of choice. And so we saw huge demand, and that's how we booked $8.5 billion of connectivity deals with those hyperscalers last year alone.
When you were talking to your enterprise customers, were they saying to you, we want to do X, Y, and Z with AI, but we can't? I mean, we literally can't because it's not working because the networks aren't serving us properly?
I would say that there's a pretty significant segment of advanced digital companies that recognize the gap. And then there's the lion's share of enterprises that haven't used AI enough to really understand that gap. And so we're partnering with those more advanced companies, but we are one of them. So we had to use AI in order to transform our business. We are building self-healing networks. We're building intelligent sales, intelligent customer service, et cetera. All of that needs AI. It started with...
Can I ask, when you say intelligent sales, you mean bots?
I mean a combination of agents plus people. It's a combination.
What does agent mean to you? I'm just curious because I think almost everyone on the stage is going to have a different definition.
Okay, agentive AI is basically, I think you can call it a bot, but it's an agent that's in service of a certain functional outcome.
Why did Lumen not decide to do both? In other words, continue to serve its consumer fiber to the home base, and then also do enterprise AI, be all things to all customers?
Why did we do a deal? 2 weeks ago, we announced a deal with AT&T to sell our consumer fiber business to AT&T for $5.75 billion, and it's just the fiber to the home piece. So we saw two things. Number one, AI, fastest diffusing technology in the history of mankind, needs fiber networking. And then the demand curves for fiber to the home and wireless are converging. And we're in a position where we can go big and have a right to win in the enterprise space, providing fiber networks. And we didn't have the kind of scale where we could win like that in consumer, but AT&T did. So it was a better together story. So we sold that business, and now we are an enterprise digital networking company.
You still have a little bit of consumer stuff left, though. For example, you've got the copper-based to the home. Is the goal to eventually divest all the consumer parts of Lumen?
Well, I think the copper networks serve both enterprise and consumer. And they're legacy products. They're the networks that aren't serving the AI economy. However, for Lumen, they throw an enormous amount of cash. So they're financially important to the company as we transform. And they also have, I'll call it the secret sauce. The way that we're transforming the architecture and the way that we serve technically our enterprise customers has a lot to do with those copper networks and the assets that we could reuse.
I'm wondering, since you announced the AT&T deal, now granted it's been basically a week at this point, the share price hasn't really moved up or down, really. It's been relatively flat. Surprised? Yeah, I mean, given what you said, and obviously you had signaled earlier that you were probably going to do something like this, but if this is the big transformation of the company, what are investors missing?
Hey, look, so am I ever surprised by Wall Street? Heck no. The job is not to, it's like poker face. Sure, what next? But the reality is that this is a complex space that not a lot of people understand critical infrastructure and the role that it plays. Not a lot of people understand the growth path that we see. We are transforming Lumen and using the new things that we're selling to enterprises in the way that technology companies have been doing for a long time, in the way that me and my leadership team learned at various technology companies. We see it very clearly. We know that markets take a while to metabolize things, but we're really confident in our right to win in this space. The other thing is, Dan, this is really important. Transformations don't happen overnight. And any given day, week, month, or quarter, the stock price is, you just can't get distracted by it. You got to focus on your customers. And we're focused on enterprise customers and what we know they will need to thrive in the AI economy, and we're building that for them.
You mentioned poker face. Let me ask you a poker question, which is the cliche is, if you look around the table and you can't find the sucker, it's probably you. If Wall Street isn't buying this transformation necessarily, are you the sucker at the table?
Wow, that's a heck of a question. Hell no. And I basically see a very important need in working very closely with customers. We also see uptick in demand. We've improved our business results materially, coming in at a quarter of the shrink rate on the legacy side of the house than the rest of the industry. We're turning the company around. Am I concerned about, Wall Street's ability to metabolize all of the changes that we're doing? No, they're pretty smart as well. And I think there are phases to a transformation. Step one, free cash flow. Boom, we got it. Step two, grow your EBITDA. Boom, we called the ball at the end of the year. Step three, grow your revenue. That's in the plan, and that's what we're working on right now. So I feel really good about it.
I'm wondering, you talked earlier about connecting the data centers. Is Lumen, and maybe it's both, but when you look at the business and the way you look at it, is it to connect data centers primarily, or is it to sometimes bypass them and to basically bypass the data centers and go straight to the enterprise customer?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's something called hybrid architecture. And, the cloud companies back a decade ago said, put your data in the cloud. There are a lot of CIOs that said, heck no, I'm never doing that. And now look what's happening, right? But there's a huge amount of data that's not in the cloud. Yeah. It could be on-prem, it could be at the edge, it could be in a data center, it could be in a cloud company, or it could be spread everywhere. We are everywhere, users are everywhere, applications are hosted everywhere, and data is everywhere. You need a network that's flexible and agile enough to keep up with processing data and providing insights no matter where the users are, and that's what we're building. And it's part infrastructure, which we've already got a very significant moat compared to the rest of the companies on the planet in terms of our physical infrastructure, and a digital platform to make it easy to consume these services and design the kinds of companies that you want.
If the enterprise, generically speaking, your customers, if they continue adopting AI in the way you expect, and which I think almost everybody in this room expects, there's been a lot of talk about GPU bottlenecks at the data center. Are we facing, or will we be facing, a networking bottleneck?
We already are there. So I am working with a Fortune 500 CEO who has data in one cloud and needs to get it to another cloud, cannot actually go through the traditional architecture that you asked me about earlier with the interconnects because it's too slow, it's not secure enough, and it's not intelligent enough. And she and I are working on leveraging our direct fiber access to be able to bypass that. This is a very advanced technology company and one that is far ahead and out in front in terms of providing AI and digital services to other enterprise companies and knows that she needs these networks. Yeah. And so we're letting companies like that influence the roadmap of how we build the digital platform to reshape networking.
There'll be a bunch of talk, I think, at this event today about policy in Washington, D.C. I assume you've spent some time down there. If you had the president's ear or Congress's ear or could even flip a switch and change something, what would be, from a policy perspective, the one thing you would like to see the United States do that it's not currently doing?
You're not going to be surprised. Look, critical infrastructure is boring until it becomes critical, right? And so being able to go fast. Building out networks takes a long time on the physical side, and we need to be able to go fast. It's an issue of national importance, right? National security, innovation.
So are we talking things like permitting?
Macroeconomic development. We need go-fast buttons for all of those kinds of things. I think permitting reform is on the top of everybody's list. How do you build a path from California to New York as quickly as possible? Think of how many municipalities you have to go through. Think of how many states you have to go through. That would be one example. I think there's a lot. We have a lot of access in Washington, D.C. I know there's a lot of very constructive dialogue and sometimes debate about what does good look like in terms of supporting infrastructure companies like ours to be able to go fast to help the country be competitive.
Do you feel that the conversation is moving in D.C. is moving fast enough?
I think it's late, but moving very quickly. So
Why
we're very
is it late?
pleased.
What was the delay? I mean, was the last administration not paying enough attention?
I think that we probably saw this coming over the past decade, and it really just became sort of commonly understood that our critical infrastructure is not in a good place. And I'm talking specifically about like data center build-outs, power, space, cooling, and fiber connectivity in the past couple of years. So I think these conversations, it would be great to already have the answers and to be going fast. But I got to tell you, I'm pretty pleased with how much we've accomplished in terms of getting awareness on this issue.
Do you feel, and I don't know how much insight you necessarily have to this, but when you look at other countries, do you feel others are doing better than us at the build-out piece, the physical build-out piece?
That who was doing better?
Are other countries doing better at it than we are?
I think we have to remain paranoid and assume that everybody's doing great, because that's the key to innovation here, is to constantly inspire to be the best in the world. I think there are some other very rich countries that you can imagine are doing some pretty darn interesting things innovation-wise, and I think we just have to be vigilant about our commitment to ensuring that the companies who have made this country what it is today are given the ability to go fast to ensure that we maintain our leadership technology-wise.
Do you expect that most other major telcos at some point will make the same shift that Lumen is making?
I think what we're seeing,
or at least try to.
So, hey, look, the telco is a really tough space to understand. You've got, very large companies focused on consumer and that fiber to the home and the wireless convergence, and that's, how they want to get their return on dollars invested. And then there are pure play networking companies that aren't investing in a digital platform. Right now, Lumen stands alone in its vision to wrap a digital platform around a physical network to make it easy and agile to use these services.
When you think of the future of the home user, the consumer user, me, you in your own house, are the current networks going in, are those going to be sufficient in 10 years, 15 years?
I think 10 years, maybe 20, no way.
Really, that's interesting. Final question for you. You talked about how you're using AI inside of Lumen. Talk about that a little bit, kind of what you currently see as the best internal use case, and then also in your personal life. What's your best use case right now for AI?
My go-to is to use ChatGPT personally to ensure that my kids and husband, are on track, and I make sure that we,
On track? What does on track mean?
Oh, giving them the right answer. I love answering the question that nobody at the table can answer, and then saying like, I didn't come up with it. It was right here, you ding-dongs. But in all seriousness, I use it every single day. I am, not necessarily current on all the technology topics that I want to be current on, and it takes me a very short period of time to get savvy really, really fast. Learning about companies, doing a customer briefing. Look, there's no reason why you shouldn't use Microsoft 365 Copilot, for example, in order to create...
Sell some stock from the old Joe.
I do.
Yeah.
In order to create, a briefing pack, because it takes everything from the outside and everything from our systems inside about what we know about this customer, combines it and makes the briefing really punchy and quick. We're using it in sales, we're using it in customer service, we're using it in operations, we're using it in engineering, and we're very toe forward. I mean, this is how we're transforming the company, and it's also how we're positioning our critical infrastructure to help other companies. So we got to be great at this.
Kate, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.